Hello, everyone. Before we begin this episode, I did want to let you know that the content we will be discussing includes sensitive topics related to sexual abuse and violence. I understand that these subjects can be very distressing, and I do encourage you to take care of your own well-being. If you feel that you may be triggered by such discussions, it might be best just to skip this particular episode. Thanks very much for your understanding, and please do take care. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again. And as always, I'd like to start by thanking you very much for joining me. And today I'm joined by Keeper Catran-Whitney, who is an author and speaker who is here to discuss his life experiences that inspired him to embark upon a writing journey to bring clarity to a very difficult topic. And today's conversation is going to dig deep in some really sensitive and important areas, folks. So brace yourself. I'll start off with a little bit about Keeper. Keeper was born in 1958 in San Francisco, the second of eight siblings. However, his father was a bit more prolific than just the eight and has 24 children that Keeper knows of. I think we'll just move swiftly on from that one.
That's perfect. That's great.
So before graduating high school, Keeper went to 11 grade
Oh,
schools, lived in 21 different spots, including being evicted from three houses. Through experiences growing up, he decided to write his first book about experiencing grappling with his four sisters' sexual abuse and trauma at the hands of his stepfather and complicit mother. So firstly, he searched for any reference material that could help him as a sibling understand his trauma and something from a brother's viewpoint. And then when he did more research and asked experts if they had ever heard of any reference material that could help him work through from a brother's perspective, they all said no. So in light of this, he took the initiative and wrote a book for brothers, the first book of its kind called Helplessness, the mental health challenges brothers experience once we learn our sisters, excuse me, have been sexually abused by our parents. And this is to help him and other men and brothers cope with the pain, guilt, and shame of failing our sisters. Keeper, I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on the show today. Thank you very, very much for joining me.
Gary, thanks for having me. I have to say, man. So we're talking about a very sensitive topic, and then you go into my father's ability to be prolific and just yeah, all over the place. That's great. That's absolutely fantastic.
I love
Um,
it. It's part of the story,
that,
of course.
yes, it definitely is part of the story, even though we're not going to be getting into that aspect of the story. So much of my life and our challenges did begin with him. But the part that we're going to be dealing with happens to be with my stepfather and my mother and what all transpired from that. So thanks for the fantastic introduction. That was different.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's get on to the more
Yeah.
serious topics here, of course, and let's start with what you can share about the inspiration for your book, Helplessness.
Absolutely. You touched on it in the really, really briefly, but let me just say this is going to be a very sensitive topic, as you said, and we're going to be talking about child sexual abuse, and it's going to be very difficult. So know that if any of this information triggers you or causes you to have some emotional challenges, by all means, back away.
Yeah.
Gary's podcast will be here. You will be able to pick it up and continue. But protect yourself at all costs. So, as Gary said, I'm the author of Helplessness, which has been somewhat retitled from the mental health challenges to the emotional health challenges brothers experience after we learn our sisters have been sexually abused. I am, as he said, sibling number two of eight. My mother had all eight of her kids by the time she was 24 years old. And my story centers around when brothers learn their sisters have been sexually abused, No one ever asks if we are okay. Do we need to talk? Is there anything that we need? We are put in the position of being shunted to the side. It's as though we are taboo, we are inconvenient truth. Everyone else in the equation is either questioned or has to deal with it or has some sort of conversation, except the brothers. No one ever asks about the brothers. So it really becomes, have you ever wondered what happens to brothers? And so my book, Helplessness, not only explores that, but answers the question. From my perspective, a brother, it's a book from a brother's perspective, which obviously encompasses other members of my family, but it is the very first book of its kind. Because as Gary said, when I decided to seek help, there was no help. In fact, that was in 1977. And as of today, there is still nothing out there that addresses the needs of brothers. So, Gary, I know you have questions, and I know we're really going to get into this. So, let me, in the spirit of the Olympics and the baton, back to you and let you run with it and take us wherever you want to go. But understand, nothing is off. Everything is off the table. You can ask whatever you want to ask in any way that you wish.
Thank you. So when we did our introductory call a wee while back, you had talked about your family being on the cusp of some potential greatness, and
Yeah.
then these horrific events came to light, which then had a profound effect on both your family and the world. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes, absolutely. In Well, let me just jump back to the beginning. In 1971, my family was very poor. We could barely afford to pay rent. In fact, as you pointed out, I went to 11 grade schools before I graduated high school. We moved that often. I lived in 21 different places before I moved out. And not only were we evicted, but I was homeless 3 times, not knowing where I was going to have a roof or how I was even going to eat. So my life was very much like that. So in 1971, my mother, who was an amazing entertainer and singer, decided to get together with her sister and brother, and they formed a singing group, and they were amazing. But as great as they were, they could not make enough money to solve our financial problems. So in 1971, you have the rise of the Jackson Five. I mean, they're everywhere. Michael Jackson and his brothers, they are superstars on the world stage. You know, you're getting songs like ABC, Who's Loving You, I Want You Back. You got all of those songs.
Yeah.
They're just indelible in our mind and in our spirit. So my mother would hear us singing around the house, emulating them. And then one day she got the idea to ask her 8 children, do you guys want to sing? Because if you can sing and you want to do it, we could make more money as a singing family. The next thing you know, the Whitney family is born. Me and my brothers and sisters immediately are working in after hour nightclubs all over Los Angeles. I mean, our life was singing after 2 a.m., getting up, going to school, rehearsing, and repeat. That was our life. And we lived in gang fested LA. It was just a horrific experience, but that kept us off the street. So we kept doing our thing because we had a dream that we could sing. One Saturday afternoon, we are rehearsing and the phone rings. My mother walks over to the phone and then she whispers to us, shh. And she picked up the telephone and says, hello? Who? Then she turns and looks at us and says, shh, Michael Jackson is on the phone.
Wow.
Yes, that Michael Jackson, soon to be king of pop. She looks at the brother under me, child number 4, and says, he wants to talk to you. So my brother picks up the telephone, all excited, hello? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Hangs up the phone and screams, Michael Jackson said he's heard of us. Says he heard I sing and dance just like him. Keep going. We will get there someday. Jump cut to 1977. 6 years later, we are everywhere. Concerts, magazines, TV shows, you name it. We made the coveted Billboard's Top 100 not twice, but 3 times that year. We were everywhere. Everything we touched turned to gold. We were on our way. 1977 also happened to be the year Motown completed their exhaustive 3-year search to replace Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5, who they had lost to Epic Records. Guess who they chose? Yes, my family. We were the family to replace Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 at Motown. In fact, the woman who discovered Michael Jackson and Jackson 5 in Gary, Indiana, Suzanne DePass, was walking us through the front door. She was the person who said, you guys not only are a larger family, but you are even more talented because all of you sing lead, all of you dance, all of you can play instruments. You guys are them on steroids. And so Motown had found their replacement group. We were about to sign the largest new artist contract Motown ever offered any group, larger than the Supremes, larger than the Four Tops, larger than the Jackson 5, larger than anyone there. We were it. In fact, they had created the TV show for us as well. I have the pilot script in my office. It's called At Wits End. It was a 30-minute variety show. And we were there. So on the Thursday or Friday, we were going to sign the contract. That week, we were just so excited. But that Saturday, my oldest sister screams upstairs, boys, come downstairs, family meeting. So we all come running downstairs. This is it. We're going to find out what day it is. In fact, I like to say the bus was outside, the engine was running, the door was open, the seats were warm. All we had to do was step onto the bus and we were gone.
Yeah.
So we all come running into the living room. I'm the last one to enter of the kids. And when I enter, my 3 youngest sisters, the 3 youngest of all of us, are sitting on the couch. But something's odd. They're not saying a word. And what makes that odd is they were never quiet. They laughed, they joked, they teased everybody all the time. In fact, all of us did. That was just part of the thing. We just had so much fun with each other. We were that close. But there were my 3 youngest sisters sitting on the couch, Gary. They weren't saying a word. My 2 youngest brothers were at the other end of the couch. They weren't saying a word, but they were like me. They were like, "What's going on? How come no one's saying anything? What's wrong with the girls? What's wrong with the baby girls? Is what we would call them. What's wrong with the baby girls? They're not saying anything."
Yeah.
My oldest brother standing at the far end of the couch behind my 3 youngest sisters, and I lock eyes on him. I just kind of shrug, what's up? He just shakes his head. I have no idea. My oldest sister, as you enter the living room, is pacing back and forth across the archway leading into the living room, and she is pissed. She is mad. But that's really not all that surprising because she and my mom could be at each other a lot. In fact, earlier that day, my sisters were talking to my mother and they were raised voices. They would go into one bedroom and they would start raising voices and talking loud, and you could hear them. It was really agitated, like agitated bees. I mean, they were going at it.
Yeah.
Then they'd go into another bedroom and continue the conversation. And then a couple of them would go into a bathroom and they continue the conversation. So I'm just thinking the girls are just doing what the girls are doing. So her being agitated, as I said, Gary, it wasn't all that different, not all that surprising. It was just kind of what they would do from time to time. So I took a seat between my sisters and my 2 brothers on the couch. And within seconds after I entered, my mother and stepfather entered. Now we have a brown recliner in the middle of the living room, flashing violently against this green carpet. Nothing in our house matched. Everything was mismatched because when you're poor, you're going into lots, you're going You're just trying to dig furniture and stuff from wherever you can get it. And for us, that was our life. We'd see something on the street, we'd grab it, we'd bring it home.
Yeah.
Or we try to get some hand me down, or maybe someone would give us something. That's what it was for us. And the same thing was like that with food. Sometimes me and my older brother would have to go into the streets and find bottles and turn them in for some money to get a pound of ground beef, get a bag of rice. That was not uncommon for me to have to scrounge the streets to do something like that. So when my mother and stepfather entered, and my stepfather's 6'6", 250 pounds. He's a mountain of a man. And he wears this large afro wig that puts his height over 7 feet tall. So he is massive and he's incredibly strong. He walks and he sits down in that recliner and he immediately bends over and places both hands over his face and drops his head down. What the hell? Wait a minute, what's going on there? Are we not going to be talking about the contract that's about to change our life? He doesn't say a word. Huh. My mother, who's very bubbly like her 8 children, very effervescent, very energetic, she's also not saying a word, but she walks and stands in front of the large plate glass window that overlooks the outside, and she turns around and just looks at her 8 kids, stopping at my oldest sister, who's walking in front of the archway, back and forth still. And she locks eyes on her, and she is looking as if she's ready to kill. Wait, did I miss something? I heard family meeting come downstairs. What are we here for? My mother then looks at the rest of us and she's very stoic. There is no emotion. There is no feeling. There is absolutely nothing but blankness on her face. Whatever it was my sisters and mother were talking about, me and my brothers are about to learn. I live in California. And in California, we get earthquakes all the time. In fact, this week, we have had 2 of them.
Yeah, I heard.
Earthquakes, material earthquakes, they uproot trees, they crack foundations of homes, homes rock back and forth 3 ways, depending on how severe the earthquake, they break and they crash. Those things can be put back together. Those are material earthquakes, a little gum, a little glue, a hammer, some rebar, some wood, some nails, and pop, 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 back. Everything back together, get back on the road, walk back in the house. Emotional earthquakes, that's very, very different. Emotional earthquakes are difficult because they involve feelings, they involve emotion. And putting those back together, those take work because the nature of them can be so stunning, so severe. At times, it can be near impossible to come back from. My 3 brothers and I are about to be hit with 3 emotional earthquakes in a 10-minute span. We're about to hear the words no brother could ever prepare for, the words no brother ever expects to hear, ever. My mother finally speaks. Earthquake number 1. Your stepfather has been molesting your sisters for years. What? Wait a minute. What did she say? No, what are you talking about? No, 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 no. What did you just say? I start to drop emotionally. I am so slow on the uptake because she's still talking, describing things, and all I was able to hear, all I ever remember hearing is apartment, liquor store, Park. Things are coming at me so fast. PTSD is swallowing me up. I am descending into this void of darkness. I have no idea what has just happened. My family is the type of family all of our friends wanted to be a part of. Their parents wanted to be in our family because we were so much fun. And yet, here I am being told one of the darkest secrets I have ever heard. And it's in my family. This doesn't happen to my family. This happens to everyone else's family. Not us. Not us.
Yeah.
So I am dropping, Gary. My mother then hits us with earthquake number two. I'm already emotionally frazzled. I am vulnerable. She then says, I have known all along. Oh, no, this can't be. You have known what all along? You have known that he has been molesting your sisters. In fact, it started the year Michael Jackson called our house in 1971. You have known this has been going on and you did nothing? Me and my brothers, we do not have a clue. We are so paralyzed emotionally. We are so traumatized emotionally. I'm about 16 or 17 years old, and because we weren't necessarily streetwise, because all we did was rehearse and we were in the house. And so that's all we did. But even still, you tell something like this to an adult can't handle this news. How are young children supposed to handle this news?
Yeah.
Now, my sisters are able to handle it because they're not showing surprise, but the reason why they can handle it is because they have already been experiencing it directly for 6 years. They have been processing this for 6 years. They have been protecting themselves for 6 years. They have been told, do not tell your brothers, otherwise, I will hurt you, I will kill you, I will hurt them, I will kill them. And so they do everything in their power to not only protect themselves, but protect their brothers. And this is why they are not reacting, but they are afraid now because the boys are about to be told. And what are the boys going to do? Well, we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Then emotional earthquake number three is dropped in our lap. Now, the first two earthquakes are so heinous, they are so horrific. But for me and my brothers, they do not compare long term to the third one. And this is why I have written the book Helplessness. My oldest sister, the third oldest of us, spins around and points at her four innocent brothers and says, you can't tell anyone. You can't talk about it ever. It didn't happen to you. It only happened to us girls. You can't talk about it ever. And like that, with the snap of a finger, everything we knew about our family lay broken on the living room floor, destroyed. Now you're a brother. What are you supposed to do? How do you react? Oftentimes, people will tell you, I would have done this. I would have done that. Girl, if someone had done that to me, I would have done this. Dude, if I had done that, that is all noise.
Yeah.
It does nothing because you don't know what you will do until you're in this situation. So, my brothers and I, my sisters and I, we are broken. My mother and my stepfather, because my mother, the reason why they came in after us, obviously had planned this part that my stepfather would fake a heart attack and she would get him out of the living room right away before anything happens. And that's exactly what they did. So me and my siblings, we sat in the living room for about 10 minutes, not saying a word. When we finally found the wherewithal emotionally after all the shock and disbelief, and then the guilt starts coming in, and the self-blame and realization of betrayal and just anger, all this stuff starts to take over. We eventually went to our rooms and no one said a word. And I remember Gary going to my room, and I don't remember how I got there. I really don't. I think my feet just said, let me handle this from this point on. Let me get you to where you need to go because I know you won't be able to figure out how to navigate from the living room to your bedroom. You need me to help you with this. But on the way there, who wants to go to their bedroom? That's the last place I want to go. Be alone?
Yeah.
Because what I know is in my bedroom is there's this whirlpool. It's like this a maelstrom just swirling around, and there's this white shark of emotion ready to pounce on me. And when I went into the bedroom, that's exactly what happened. I just broke down. I didn't know what to do. So the question becomes for those of you listening, no one ever asks afterwards, do you need to talk? Do you need anything? No one notices the brothers. No one ever asks, are you okay? And so what my sister said locked us down for 45 years. And I know why she said what she said. It took me a while to figure it out, but she's protecting herself and she's protecting her little sisters. But to say that it didn't happen to us boys, nothing could be further from the truth. As soon as it started on the first of them, it was starting on all of us.
Yeah.
Now, my sisters, because they were what what I this is the only word that's coming to mind, but because they were actively involved, because they were the ones being sexually abused and raped and taken advantage of, uh, they were doing what they needed to do. And like I said, I know why my sister did it because historically, what have men done to women on this topic, which gives women the control of the narrative. So of course, me and my brother did exactly what they said
Yeah.
don't do. We didn't say anything. And oftentimes when I do talks and I'm on speaking engagements, invariably there will be at least one woman who will raise her hand and then I will answer her question, which I answer everyone's question. There were plenty of things that I've messed up on going forward. But someone will always say, there'll be a woman who says, your sister's absolutely right. It didn't happen to you boys. You can't talk about it. And I would say, well, of course I can talk about it because I'm a brother and it impacted me. Yeah, but it happened to them directly. You were just kind of indirectly impacted. And I say, this is not the time to say my trauma is worse than your trauma.
Yeah.
And then I tell the woman this. My older brother and I, we were sexually abused by our babysitter daily for almost 6 months, 6 years before my sisters. So I do know. And then in that moment, comprehension dawns on her, and I imagine other women in the audience. Oh, he does understand. But I shouldn't have to go there because you shouldn't try to normalize my trauma in order to make it seem as though your trauma is better or worse, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
But that's what happened. So in 1971, you could still find a movie every now and then from a woman's perspective. You could find a book. You could find some articles. Now there are millions of articles, thousands of books, stories almost every week from a woman's perspective. But in 71, a brother could not find anything. A man probably would be hard pressed to find something about a man being sexually abused, but a brother, oh no. There were no documentaries. There were no interviews by Oprah or Ellen. There were no movies of the week. There were 12-step programs on just about everything you could possibly imagine. But you couldn't even find a one-step program for a brother. And the same thing exists today, almost 50 years later.
Yeah.
There is nothing for brothers. My book is the very first one of its kind that looks at the impact of the trauma brothers experience, and it's designed to for two main reasons: to elevate the voices of brothers in the child sexual abuse conversation. So when everyone else in the conversation is taking a pause, we could step in and say, "We need help. This is what we are experiencing. Look and read through my family's experience and understand." Brothers are traumatized. We are carrying this in silence. And I've met hundreds of men who are carrying this in silence. They're afraid to talk. They're afraid to approach their sisters. In fact, it took me 45 years to find the courage to do so. And I made so many mistakes along the way. There were so many things I would have, could have, and should have done. And some things that were are just so, there were a couple of times I messed up so badly. And how does a brother cope with this? And so I'm looking to elevate the brothers, and I'm also looking to give some information to sisters so that they may understand what their brothers are going through. Because for my sisters, once I found the courage and found the way to get back to them, they said, "We thought you boys didn't care because you never talked about it." And then I said, "But you told us not to.
Yeah.
You said we can't." And so we're living in fear of what you may say or do because we already know your pain.
Yeah.
And we know that you're liable to just lash out on us, and now we have to carry that as well. But if we're going to heal, we need the help and support of our sisters. And if our sisters are going to heal fully, they need the help and support of their innocent brothers. Because what ended up happening in the end, and then I know you have questions, I know you got a lot of things, Gary. I know I've talked for quite a while. But what ended up happening was my three brothers and I, we were found guilty by gender proximity, which is to say, we were found guilty because what's between my stepfather's legs is what's between our legs. That was it. And we we are told we cannot talk about it, but yet the paradox is you can't talk about it, and yet you have to answer for your non-participation.
Yeah.
Those two things should not exist in the same space, but they do. And so I'm trying to let other men know you're not alone. You're not alone. Look at my family story. In fact, in my book, ultimately, three of my sisters contribute to the book. We came that far. Three of them contribute to the book. Two of my brothers contribute to helplessness. So ultimately, yes, you do get a full family view, but understand this is from a brother's perspective.
Yeah.
And so with that, um, I will leave it right there. But you could ask me whatever you want, and we'll go in any direction that you want to go in, Gary. Any direction.
Appreciate that. Thank you. What an incredible story. Can you share some of the direct emotional challenges that you have detailed in the book, but that, from your teenage years through the next, 40 plus years, what were the main junctures and junctions that you experienced?
Well, there are so many, shock, disbelief, there's self blame, there's a stigma of other people knowing, there's a shame of not knowing. There's a shame of not knowing something you're not supposed to know about it. Everyone involved made sure you didn't know about it, but you still, as a brother,
Yeah.
feel all this shame and this guilt because to me, the definition of a brother to a sister is protecting their honor.
Yeah.
That is ultimately what it means for me to be a brother. And if I can't, that's one thing. But if I can't because I don't know, and yet I'm still feeling that I should, that's worse. That is worse. And so you've got this fear and this anxiety that's just swallowing you whole. And there's confusion and emotional crisis and depression and just so many things emotionally and psychologically. Mine got to be so dark because for some brothers it can be very, very dark. Oh, we talk a lot about mental health these days. a lot about mental health. Everything is mental health related in some form or another, but that's not it. That's really not the issue. That's the secondary issue. The issue is the emotional health, because mental health is singular. It's isolation. It means you are alone. It means the problem is solely yours. It's something that someone can write a prescription for. He takes this drug, go see this therapist, and deal with it over there. You go stand over there in the corner and you handle your problem. Well, that's what happens after the emotional support does not come. Because I think most of the things that we deal with are not mental, they're emotional. Because you have to feel the pain, you have to feel the trauma first. And so when you cannot find emotional health, and emotional health is it's a very different situation, because how do you write a prescription for emotional health? How do you how do you handle that? But the beauty of emotional health is that emotional means it's shared experience. It means you have to bring in other people to help you. It means feelings.
Yeah.
And who wants to deal with feelings today? And so when I could not find the emotional support I needed, that's when I went to the mental space in my head. That's when things became very, very dicey and very, very dangerous. As I said, it took me almost 9 years to do something. And people say, why did it take so long? Because they said, you cannot talk to us. And then there was also my mother saying, which she ultimately did not do, saying, I will handle it. And the fact is, it was like a warm blanket. It meant I didn't have to do anything. I could protect myself.
Yeah.
I mean, but in that process daily, I know I'm betraying my sisters, but you said don't talk about it. But there's just so much confusion there. And we'd be at, family functions, and you could feel the tension between me and my sisters, because you did not see my tears. How could you not hear my weeping? It was all there. So what came to a head for me, the dark place, and this answers your question more directly of what can happen. 3 months before I was to get married, I was I was tumbling down over this, because my mother had brought him back into the house. She betrayed us over and over and over again. And she brought him back in. And 3 months before my wedding in November of '86, I started thinking, I've got to get him out of the house. I've got to do something. He can no longer be around. What am I going to do? So I started losing weight. I stopped sleeping well. I just started going to this very dark place in my head. So one Saturday before we got married, I told my fiance, who I was living with at the time, I said, I got to go back home. I got to handle something. And she said to me that she could sense something was wrong, because I don't talk like that.
Yeah.
She said, is everything going to be okay? Is everything all right? I said, yeah, yeah, it'll be okay. Do you want to tell me what it is? Nope. Will I see you tomorrow? Yeah, I think so. What do you mean? I think so. Well, yeah, of course you're going to see me tomorrow. What a silly question. Of course you are. I did not tell her what I was about to do. In fact, I didn't tell anybody. So I went outside, hopped in my little orange Fiat X19, went to the house. My mother still kept a bedroom for me. And there were two bedrooms upstairs, mine and her and my stepfather's. They were separated by about 30 feet of hallway. And there's a short wall in the hallway that overlooks the stairs. My bedroom was right off the upstairs landing. So I went in. And for 2 hours, I sat in the dark and paced in the dark, waiting for a sound from my mother and stepfather's bedroom. I was sweating, I was cold, I was afraid, I was ready to do what needed to be done. It was a cool summer night, but I am drenched in sweat because the psychological and emotional impact of what had happened and what I was about to do had gripped me. It had me in its clutches. The emotional trust and all that stuff had eroded to the point that I had no emotional regulation. I did not care about anybody or anything. I was singularly focused on one thing. I have got to get him out of the house, and I know exactly how I'm going to do it. I would lie on the bed, Gary, and I would just say, okay, you got to do this for your sisters. You know you're doing this for your sisters. They need you to step up. They need you to handle this. And then, no, no, no. Look how big he is. He's 6'6". I'm 5'8". He's 150 pounds. I'm 145 pounds. He outweighs me by over 100 pounds, and he's a mountain of a man. He can just pick me up and just toss me. I know it because I have been in his clutches before. But your sisters need you. Yes, 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 yes. I can do this. It's all worth it. It's all worth it. I have decided that I'm going to kill him. But in making that decision, I was so okay with my life being forfeit because either I was going to kill him or he was going to kill me. I was so okay with that logic, but it was dumb logic because no matter what happened, if I killed him or he killed me, my sisters would be in an even worse state emotionally. But I'm a brother and I have nowhere to go. No one can help me. I've looked for help. I've called for help. I've gone to help. And no one, if you were a woman, I could help you, but you're a brother. I heard that so many times from therapists. I've never dealt with a brother before. This is new to me. No, 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 no. So I got to handle it as best I can. So I'm just lying on the bed. I'm pacing back and forth. And the instrument of his death is leaning against the door jamb in my bedroom. It is my favorite baseball bat. We would have 3 picnics a year, and I hit so many home runs with that baseball bat. It was like that bat was made custom for my hands. I knew the feel of that bat if I was in the dark and my eyes were closed. I knew exactly what that baby felt like.
Yeah.
Yes, that was mine. So I'm lying on the bed, and then I hear it creak, and I sit up and place my feet on the floor, and I jerk my head up. This is it. I hear their bedroom door close, and I hear a footstep coming down the stairs. He always had a little drag to his foot. He would go step, step, slide, step, step, slide. You know exactly who it was whenever he was in the house. I cracked the bedroom door and I looked out, and there he was, all 6'6", wearing that wig. He's over 7 feet tall. But I had already determined where I needed to be when I was going to meet him. We needed to meet in the middle of the hall, but the one place I could not be is my back against the short wall that overlooked the stairwell. Because all he would have to do was place one finger in my chest, and I am tumbling down. My neck snaps, done.
Yeah.
So we approach each other, and he sees me coming toward him, and he smiles and like, hey, and then it stops. He pauses, and he realizes something's wrong. My body language, the look on my face. So we get closer and closer to each other, but he knows something is out of place. Something is not normal with me. We come chest to chest, or better yet, because he's so much taller than me, I can't even look over his shoulder without getting on my tiptoe. We are coming face to chest. And he looks down at me, and I look up at him, and I do not budge. I take a deep breath and I look up the side of this mountain and I say, you have 24 hours to leave this house. If you are still here by this time tomorrow, you will be dead because I will have killed you. He's so big, it's like he blocked out all the light coming in from the moon from the backyard. It's just dark. But I did not care. I was a brother who was mentally in the wrong place. There was no one to help me. And so what else was I supposed to do? I've got to protect my sisters. I've got to step up. I, all the time I have failed. I have betrayed them. I have got to handle this today. I gave no consideration to my fiance. I told her nothing. She was about to live a life without the husband that she wanted, and she was going to be traumatized. I did not tell my brothers. I told no one, primarily because I didn't think it was important. I'm handling this. I'm doing what others would not do. And whatever happens to me happens to me. Either I'm going to be dead, cool, or he's going to be dead, and I'm going to go to jail for premeditated murder in California, which meant I was going to get the death sentence. Cool. My sisters will be okay. They'll be protected. Stupid, stupid, stupid. So when I said what I said, he looked down at me. And then I turn around and walk back to my bedroom because I did not bring the bat with me, but I know it's right there. I go in, close the door, and I grab my bat and I step back into my bedroom, bat in hand, waiting for him to come through. And I hear footsteps. Thump, thump. Oh shit. It's about to be on. Okay. It is what it is. But I continue hearing footsteps and they begin to fade. Huh. Is he walking back to the bedroom? I hear the door close. Yes. I gather myself, walk out the bedroom, walk outside, get in the Fiat, go back to my fiance's place. In fact, I was living with her at the time. She asked me, is everything okay? I said, well, I will know tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, I know I have to go back to the house. So I go back to the house, bat in hand, walk up to the front door. But at the last second, I decide to leave the bat at the front door outside because why agitate a situation? But I'm expecting when I come in the house for him to be standing there with his 38 pointing directly at my head. Oh, well, he'll be gone after today, that's for sure. I go in the house, Gary, and I don't see him. In fact, I don't see anyone. I go to the bottom of the stairs and I look up and I listen, nothing. Walk through the living room, nothing. Walk through the dining room, nothing. Walk through the kitchen to the back porch, nothing. Stand in the dining room and then I hear music. We had a makeshift studio at the back of the house, so I go back there and open the door, and there's my youngest brother. He's working on some music, and I say to him, "Is he still here?" He says, "No, he left. He left last night." Huh? He was gone. He was gone. I had lost control emotionally because I did not receive the help when I asked for it. And I had lost control mentally because I did not receive the help. There was no one I could talk to, or certainly no one at the time I believed I could talk to because I didn't care anymore. Like I said, no one ever answered if I was okay, did I need anything? And this was the evolution of that lack of support. Things can be that way for a brother. In fact, what got me to write the book in 2013, it took me 10 years to write this. In 2013, I decided I was going to write this book, but before I did, I knew I had to tell my sisters to let them know this was coming. I didn't want them to be caught off guard for one day. I just dropped this on them.
Yeah.
But I know in going to talk to them, I know what their reaction is going to be. It's going to be, how dare you? Hell no. What makes you think you could write a story like that? But I'm going to write the story because it's my story. It's a brother's story, and other men need to know they're not alone in this. So I call my second sister and I say, I need to talk to you about something. I'm going to write a book, and I want to talk to you about it, let you know what's coming. And she says, okay, come on over. So I go over to her house and I say, okay, let's talk outside. I don't need to have this conversation around your kids either. You are going to be hard enough. So we're standing out in front of her garage, and I just start crying. She's like, what's wrong? And so I tell her, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book from a brother's perspective on what it's like emotionally once we learn what happens to our sister, and when we can't talk, and what we carry, and what so many other men like me are carrying, and your other three brothers are carrying, the burden of all of it. And she does something completely unexpected. It broke me down. It broke me down, dude. She, instead of saying, how dare you, instead of blowing up and just the rage coming at me, she showed me grace. She showed me love and affection and compassion. And she said, of course you should write the book. All of you boys should write a book. It's not my story. It's not a girl's story. It's you boys' story. Other men need to know. You should definitely write this book. Other men have gone through the same thing. And I called my two other sisters and told them, and their response was the same. My fourth sister, we haven't spoken in decades. But even the sister who said you can't talk about it ever said, yes, you should write it. So the loss of self-esteem and the loss of self-worth and the isolation and depression that was so engulfing went away because I spent years being triggered through my vivid imaginations of what was happening to my sister. I spent years just thinking about, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? How come there is no help for you? In fact, the most powerful people in your life, your parents, are the criminals. So you can't even go to them.
Yeah.
And when we went to aunts and uncles, they wanted nothing to do with it. And so even they betrayed. And once they betrayed that process, they end up becoming part of the protective detail for the predators. They just don't know it. And that protective detail just grows and grows and grows because no one wants to help and no one wants to do anything. So the psychological and emotional trauma for brothers is really, really something. And so in going to write the book, I went down to San Diego at a conference by Lisa Nichols. She's a very powerful motivational speaker and author. And at the end of the conference, I'm called up to share my story idea. And when I was done, I went back and sat down, and I was swarmed by women who said, I had no idea this is what my brother's been carrying all this time. I had no idea this is what they've been going through. And it became so much. It became too much. I got up and ran out of the room. I literally just started jogging out of the room, and I closed the double door. And I was in the hallway just hyperventilating because I was not expecting that response from those women. Why would I? Within seconds, the double doors burst open and hundreds of women poured out. They were surrounding me. I couldn't understand it. All I did, I just said, I want to write this story. And they're all saying the same things, but it was three women who came to me separately that really left the biggest impression and really told me, yes, you are on the right path. You must write this book. Those three women, separate and apart from each other, said, I should have told my brother. The trauma was so much for him. I should have spoken to him. He wanted to talk to me, but it was so much. They took their lives over this.
Oh,
They kill themselves. And I was like, oh my goodness. Okay, okay. Uh, what do you say about that?
yeah,
And their thing is, you must write this book. You must, because not only do brothers need to know, sisters like me need to know.
yeah,
We need to embrace our brothers and make them part of the process, because the healing, not only for them and for me, involves the participation we told them we did not want them participating in.
yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, my story becomes one of hope and triumph and resilience, and a family being able to thrive, and the struggle of what it's like. So I'm trying to bring some clarity and some voices to a conversation that is normally not recognized.
Definitely. And it's such a it's such a an incredible story, so very well told, by your experiences and your ability to depict what was happening at each of the major juncture points as we go on. In terms of the book, I know that this is the first of a book of a trilogy of
Hmm.
books. So in terms of what do you want people, brothers specifically, siblings, maybe a larger audience, what do you want them to get from Helplessness, from the first book?
Yeah. And I'm glad you said brothers specifically, because oftentimes, and this has happened more than once, people will say, so when you say brothers, are you just talking about black guys? Like, no, man, I am asked that so many times. I said,
Yeah.
no, I didn't say brothers. I said brothers. And they're like, oh, because a black guy wrote it. I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
No, we are talking about brothers. Uh, what I want people to get, number one, is recognizing that brothers are traumatized by the information, by the knowledge, by the exposure of it.
Yeah.
And we are like our sisters in that we are talking about how do we handle very complex family relationships where everyone is very individual. And so how we handle it and how we define our trauma is very much on an individual basis. We are all going to receive it differently. We're all going to process it differently. We're all going to handle it differently. But at the end of the day, we all need to figure out a way to handle it and come together and heal.
Yeah.
So there's definitely that. I want sisters and women to know that brothers are not an inconvenient truth. We are not taboo. We are part of the whole, and the whole cannot be healed unless the entire part, unless every part is healed. So brothers are going to have a hard time talking about it. Me and my brothers, because we are men, and there's so much of this masculinity and some of it's toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
We don't show feelings, we don't show emotion. We did not talk amongst ourselves, because who wanted to feel and admit that they're having problems with this, even with their brothers? But we're also doing what our sister said don't do. And I kind of look at it now, it was really a coward's way out that I was taking. But it's very difficult when the people that you want to talk to the most, your sisters, say, we want nothing to do with you. And so you're really trapped in this lingo. It's like limbo, or even better yet, you are trapped in an emotional family purgatory,
Yeah.
because where do you go? So I want brothers to know who are experiencing this. And I can tell you this, certainly here in the United States, at any given time, there are 44 million adults walking who have experienced child sexual abuse, either directly or indirectly. 44 million. And those are the numbers that have been counted.
Yeah. Exactly.
So know that men, we already have a hard time expressing ourselves, because, and we are part of the problem for that, because we look at that with pride. I'm strong, I'm King Kong, I hunt, I gather, I protect. But that comes at a cost, if that's how you're constantly thinking, because you don't allow the female side of you, the society that is more compassionate, more tolerant, more understanding, more inclusive to come to the forefront and balance out all of that. And you need balance. Women, because the society and primarily men have set up this narrative that you are emotional. Your hormones are just taking you here. You can't control yourself emotionally. Well, that could be an advantage for women, and oftentimes it is, but it could be a big disadvantage when they want to step into a space and own a space. Men will try to shut that down. So it's a matter of bringing those all of that together and recognize that we all have value in every aspect of who we are. And when we are allowed to bring it forward, we can communicate very, very well and help each other tremendously. The other part of it is who do I want to gather to get something out of this? Uh, if you are law enforcement, if you're a legislator, if you're a teacher, if you're a religious leader, this is an opportunity for you to look at the book Helplessness, which is very dark.
Yeah.
It is very dark. It's very gritty, and it's done that way on purpose. There's some people who read the book, they say, Keeper, man, you do not give us a chance to breathe. And I said, no, I do not. When my stepfather was molesting my sisters, did they get a chance to breathe?
Yeah.
When I was being molested, did I get a chance to breathe? This is for you to understand what it is like when you aren't directly impacted. So it's going to be a hard read. But as I said, my sisters, after everything we went through, they contribute to the book. That never, I didn't think that would ever happen, ever. But they're going to contribute to the next book, which I'm writing now, Hopefulness. Because how do you go from hope, rather from helplessness to hopefulness? You connect to those real important emotional touch points in your life. It is family. It is fun time. It is friends. It is being able to surround yourself around and pull on those memories that can help pull you out. And then happiness is about where I'm at now. I am incredibly happy. Does that mean I do not suffer? No, it's not what it means.
Yeah.
Not at all. Because I can still watch a TV show and I still do, and a commercial comes on and I see little kids that look like my sisters, and I just start losing it.
Yeah.
There are times I just cannot handle it. Or I might be watching something and I see some sort of abuse come on and I instantly am transported to the past. But I'm at a place where I'm happy because I'm able to manage it. At the end of the day, Gary, I know, be it man or woman, sister or brother, we all want the same thing. We all want to be happy. We all want to be understood. We all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. And we all want to be able to go through life in a very positive way. Doing that requires putting in the work of healing, which is not an easy thing to do. You know, it's just not easy at all. I know there were some things that I did that helped me on my path to healing. And I say on my path because I look at every day, I'm still on the path to healing.
Yes.
We're, we're all still on the path. You
Yeah.
never get there fully, and you may slide back, and that just could be due to a memory. That could be due to something someone said. So my path, will end when I end.
Yeah.
This is a story that crosses religion, it crosses politics, it crosses race, it crosses wealth, it crosses all these lines. And case in point, I will share this story that illustrates this better than anything I could possibly say. My stepfather, who passed away a few years ago, white and Jewish. I'm Black and I grew up Baptist. He grew up on the East Coast in Brooklyn. I grew up on the West Coast. He comes from a nice middle class family. You know my family life. He is able to go to school and college. You know my situation. And yet I'm married to his daughter. It's just We were just meant for each other. Just how I look at it, because how in the world am I in this situation? So a couple of years before he passed away, unbeknownst to me, he had purchased Helplessness. I had no idea. I had no idea he had the book. So he calls me and he says, I want you to come to the house. I want to talk to you. I'm like, oh, Dad, okay. Everything okay? And he said, yes, I just want you to come to the house. I want to talk to you. I'm thinking something's wrong.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, this man is my father.
Yes.
My biological dad, alcoholic, sexual abuser. My mother, he was trying to be a pimp. My stepdad, they were a piece of work. This white Jewish guy, and as far as I'm concerned, this is my dad. He is everything I have always wanted a father to be.
Yeah.
Love him to death. He was just amazing. So I go to the house, Gary, and I walk in, and the first thing I notice is my mother-in-law is not there. She's always there. Where is she? He says to me, he gestures with his hand, come over here and have a seat at the dining room table. So I go over and sit down. I said, okay, Dad, everything okay? And then I look down and I see, excuse me, and I see what's in front of him. It's my book. I'm like, oh, okay, something's wrong. He doesn't like what I wrote. And I have no idea what he has read, no idea at all. And so I'm just waiting. And he looks at me and he pats the book and he says, I want you to know, I understand. What? I understand. You understand what? I read your book. Okay, I understand. I'm going to tell you something I have never told anyone. I've only told my wife. I haven't even told my daughters. I haven't even told your wife. And I'm thinking, okay, what am I about to hear? He then says, when I was about 10 or 11, my family and I, we lived in New York. We lived in a two-story apartment. We were downstairs. There was a family upstairs. They were our best friends. We were so close that none of us, neither family locked their door. We could go in and out of each other's apartment all day or night. It made no difference. One day, my mother or father, I don't remember, sent me upstairs to get something. I don't know, rice, who, I don't know, eggs, milk. I don't remember. And I'm all ears at this point, but tears are starting to flow from his eyes. I don't want to interrupt him, so I'm just quiet.
Yeah.
He says, I go upstairs and I go into their apartment and I don't see anybody, but I hear a sound from the bedroom, one of the bedrooms. And so I go and I open the door. The father of the family is molesting my sister. I stood at the doorway for a few seconds and then I turned around and went back downstairs. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't even tell my sister I saw it. A couple of months later, I saw the same thing. And again, I didn't tell anybody. He's in full on tears at this point. He's 95 years old. He says, I want you to know I understand everything you went through. Everything you could have done and didn't do, I did it. Gary, it hit me in that moment. This man is 95 years old. He will pass away in 2 years. But at 95, he wants someone to hear him.
Yeah.
He wants someone to say, listen, I could have done this. I should have done that. I betrayed my sister. He's carrying this burden for over 70 years.
Yeah.
And here he is talking to his black son-in-law who grew up come 180 degrees from him in every way possible, is the person he's talking to. He didn't talk to my white brother-in-laws, one who is also Jewish, one who is also Greek. He didn't tell them. He told me.
Yeah.
He didn't tell anyone but his wife. He didn't even tell my wife, his daughter. And we are both a mess at this point.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew this thing is so big because on his way out, he is still hoping that, I don't know, was he looking for forgiveness? I have absolutely no idea. But he wanted to finally say it out loud. And in that moment, he could release, unshackle himself, even in the smallest way. But it was going to be enough that it would allow him to recapture his manhood fully, to get his self esteem back. His sister, she was hilarious. He was absolutely a crack up. She had passed away about 10 years before he and I had this conversation. His sister was just amazing. And so I love sharing that story because it really encapsulates this is for the brothers. This is not a black man's story. This is a brother's story.
Yes.
And it makes no difference where you come from. You can be in Canada, you can be in Scotland, you could be in a country in Africa, you could be in Mexico, you could be in Rio, you can be in Iceland, you could be anywhere, Australia, England. It makes no difference. This is happening everywhere. And there are men like me carrying this everywhere.
Yeah. So powerful, and it must have been, a life-changing conversation for both of you. I can feel the energy from you and your depiction of your father-in-law as well. Just absolutely amazing. And it's just so inspiring, there are so many different avenues of this story and so many different personal paths that you could have taken. Some you may have already taken, and you maybe backtrack from them. You didn't want to take them with the benefit of hindsight, but to
Oh
then
my
see a gap.
gosh. The greatest regret of my life happens at my weddings. You're absolutely correct. I did backtrack, but you still have to find a way forward.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I interrupted you there, but you were absolutely correct. And I had no one had ever said it like that. At times you may backtrack. No one had ever said it to me in that way.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I did. I
Yeah.
did.
And that's the journey, to see a genuine material gap in life, on the darker side of life, of course, as well. And then to do the work that you've done over a period of time and not without its trials and tribulations, of course, with the stigma surrounding this, with your own personal trauma, with the devastation that it caused for your family and your family's future at the time, to take it and turn it into something inspiring, something real, something that's part of a journey that we're all on, and people who've suffered from the same unfortunate fate are on. I just I don't think I could admire your journey anymore, Keeper. It's absolutely incredible. I am fairly certain this is not the last time we're going to chat on a podcast, my friend. So I'm going to wrap it up for now. And in terms of where people can find you, what's the best mode of communication to be able to find your work?
Well, obviously, well, I don't know about obviously, but people could definitely go to Amazon and get the book.
Yeah,
There's the paperback and there's the Kindle version. I do a lot of speaking. If anyone's interested in, exploring that, they could go to keeper.author at Gmail. My website is keepercatran-whitney.com. There's my 16-part podcast where I talk to my sister for the first time, talk to my brother for the first time, talk to my son, and just different people, and getting all that out. And so those are the best ways to reach me. And of course, come back and hear this conversation. It's, finish it up. I understand it's going to be difficult for some, but Gary and the Best of You podcast, uh, uh, you can always reach out to Gary. Gary knows how to get a hold of me as well. So those are probably the best ways to do it.
Fantastic. Excellent. This has been an absolute pleasure, a very difficult conversation. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate the stories that you've been willing to share to the world. And I do wish you all the very, very best with the book and the subsequent books as well. I really look forward to seeing how it all unfolds.
And I look forward to seeing you again. You take care.
Thank you.